The Director General of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority is before the Senate Committee on Aviation. He's here to discuss issues regarding air safety, as well as a controversy surrounding the construction of a cargo airport in Ogun State. He announces the suspension of operations of Asman Airline with immediate effect over repeated air incidents.
This airline had 3 incidents within a period of 6 weeks, 5-6 weeks, starting 11 February. The last was yesterday. And they are all related to a particular part of the aircraft, the tires, the wheels. Yes. What happened in Lagos, there was no report. There was no maintenance work. And the aircraft took off with passengers to Lagos. Guidelines were not being followed. There was issue with their maintenance procedures.
Discussions turned to the dispute over the construction of the cargo airport in Ogun State. In 2007, the administration of Governor Benga Daniel commenced the agro-cargo airport project in Ikperu Remo in Ogun State, but could not complete the project. His successor, Ibikunle Amosu, initiated an international airport located in Wasimi, Iwekoro local government area in Ogun State. The contention appears to be which airport has the approval of the federal government.
Which one, from your records of your agency, was given approval?
Given the records of an approval issued in 2008 by the then, on behalf of the Honourable Minister, for the establishment of an airport, cargo airport, Ogun State cargo airport at Shagamu. That's what I have on my records and the Nigerian Civil.
Is there any record in your agency giving your agency approval for Wasimi Airport, cargo airport?
I asked and I was told that it's nothing on that in NCA.
A member of the committee, who was a former secretary to the Ogun State government, said he is aware of the Wasimi project and necessary approvals were sought for it.
Money like that cannot just be expended without having any getting clear authority or clear approvals. I mean, with that, I mean, even all the engineering coordinates and everything, you can't do that without even interacting with NCA or any of those, or FAN or any of those people.
The committee chairman, Senator Smart Adeyemi, says it is important for Ogun State to resolve this matter and come to a logical conclusion, and that the committee will communicate its findings to the state government. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
Well, good morning and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily. I'm Ayo Makinde.
It's a beautiful Wednesday morning. You're welcome. I'm Kairo Kikiolu.
Well, of course, what you just saw is something that transpired just yesterday, and clearly there are issues that date back years from now. Clearly more than 8 years. I mean, given the heads of government in the state that you saw there. Well, 2 issues were raised clearly in that report. One is that of the discipline in the aviation sector in Nigeria. I find it quite interesting that the NCA would even suspend the activities of one organization now, given, I mean, from what I know, from a little experience that I've had, it's one of the most consistent airlines. So when sudden things are not done to ensure the safety of the passengers, definitely should call the attention of the airline operators, and that is just one. There are a number of other things that hopefully the NCAA will begin to get interested in. For instance, the Passenger Bill of Rights, which has, attracted attention a good number of times. So on the one hand, you get to the airport, the flights are delayed, flights are suspended, and no one knows when the next flight is going to happen. I want to believe that all those ones are already also in the full glare of the NCAA.
Oh, you don't even know the flight has been postponed anyway. You just, I mean, most people get there before time and they're waiting, thinking, okay, I'm early today, not realizing that you're actually like 4 hours early because the flight has been delayed an extra 3 hours.
It happened to me.
You don't get a message, you don't get a mail, and when you approach some of the officials, sometimes it looks as though you're doing what they call oversabi. Like,
even that is if you find the officials to attend to you. Yeah, because I was looking around that this particular day, I saw a banner that says, if you have any issues, report to the to a fan or someone, and I'm looking around. I didn't see a desk.
There's nobody around.
I didn't see a desk. Maybe there was a desk there, but I didn't see it now. Yes, I use glasses. Maybe that's why. that's why
Yeah.
I couldn't see it, but that's what happened. I mean, that's my experience. I don't know of many other people.
I tell you, a lot of people have had similar experiences. Definitely, there's a lot of things that need to be done. There have been some improvements. I mean, I've seen airlines try to offer refreshment just for that period of delay, but a lot more communication, a lot more respect. I talk about, do I call it extortion? I mean, the different points and the anything for us kind of statement. I mean, those things don't look good for the image of the country, especially because a lot of people, that's their first, point of contact with the nation. So it needs to be, it's a reflection of what happens in the country, but it needs to be the very best. So when investors come in, I mean, they see the nation and they're like, okay, I want to do business here. I want to stay here for longer, which ties back to the airports in Ogun State, the cargo airport and the international airport.
First of all, the cargo airport idea is an amazing idea, if you ask me, because, I mean, it's agricultural cargo. Clearly, Ogun State is fast becoming an agricultural hub of sorts, and with its closeness to Lagos, clearly a good market and so many other things like that. But that controversy, why was it even necessary in the first place?
And I think the sticker for me here is the fact that there were questions about authorization, license given or not. I mean, it's a given. A government should not embark on such. I mean, individuals do funny things. They erect buildings without approval, and you see the X mark. Individuals do that, but not a state government. So if there are questions about whether or not approval was given from the NCA or by the NCA for that other international airport to be constructed, then it begs the question, so how many other projects have been done without proper approval? Because if the NCA is saying, well, we've looked into our records and we don't seem to find that, that's a huge one.
Most certainly. But then there is even something a little more troubling there, Cardi. That is, it's one state, one government after the other, immediate. It's not just, okay, maybe 2-3 administrations after. So clearly what that is questioning is there a plan that this particular state is following? Otherwise, there would be no need for one state governor to embark on a project and the other one comes in and jettisons that project, then takes on another one. It's the resources of the state that is at stake here. It's the interests of the people that is at stake here. It's the vision or a lack of it in the state that is clearly at play here. So those questions ought to be asked by the people who employ governors in office.
Absolutely.
Because clearly, if approval, it's not even the question. I'm not even going to the issue of approval now. Now, here's the other angle in this conundrum. The previous government, the Benga Daniel government, is a PDP government. The Amosun government is an APC government. The federal government, the approving government, so to speak, is an APC government. The approval that is in the record of the NCAA is from a PDP government. So what exactly is happening here? So clearly this is beyond party. This is clear administration. And so the questions need to be asked. What exactly is happening? What exactly has happened? Yes, there's a member of the panel who says, I was a member of this government, so I know we couldn't have expended money without approval. The question then is it activities in lieu of approval, or there was an approval that says, go ahead?
I think you actually pointed to something quite important, the people. And I asked the question, what are state houses of assemblies doing? We need to legislate on this thing. A government should not come and abandon a previous project, because this is what we've seen over time. A government comes and you have abandoned projects. But this is something we can speak about on and on. But the thing here,
it involves money.
Oh, yes, but, there needs to be legislation that once a project starts, I mean, the right project, not just the random projects. It should be completed before you take on another project. And I need to commend this government trying to complete some of the projects that have been started in previous administrations some decades ago. But you know what? Let's take a look at the dailies.
One of the things that, anyway, again, let's just go into the dailies, because it is probably clearly right there on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, which is the first paper we'll be looking at this morning. It's right above the nameplate, but Let's look at the first major headline on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, first of all, this morning, and it is talking about money. Nigeria's inflation rate hits 17.33, highest in 4 years. That definitely is something troubling. Prices of food items highest in Kogi, Ondo, Ebonyi. Really? That is something.
Oh, absolutely.
Not even in Lagos, not in Abuja, not in Port Harcourt.
And I can give you supporting figures that just makes this more dire. The fact that unemployment has also risen. You look at the foreign exchange rates, it's rising. There are a lot of other things following. So it's, do I say a vicious cycle? But clearly we have a lot of work on our hands.
And we're still hovering around the recession figures.
Oh dear.
Okay. Okay, now that's the one I wanted to talk about, right above the nameplate. EFCC to demand bankers' asset declaration forms from June 1.
Oh, that caught a lot of attention. And it's still catching a lot of attention, really. The fact that people are asking, well, isn't this...
How's it even going to go?
Oh, dear.
Which bankers are we talking about here?
Well,
is it the bank staff?
Or the executive staff? Or it's a major one, definitely.
Well, the details are on the inside pages, page 29 to be specific. Find out exactly what the EFCC is talking about there through the chairman. Right beside that one, FG states FCT owed 32.915 trillion naira as of December 2020. That's how much we have as what some people are owing. Who is owing? The figures are right there on the inside pages, page 7 to be specific. And now, if we have this outstanding that the federal government, the states, and the FCT are being owed 32 point, or that's what we are owing, or that's what, I don't know.
That's why you should pick up a copy to get more details.
All right, the details are on the inside pages. Of course, the back page has sports. I want more hat tricks with Leicester. Henacho says the details are on the inside pages.
Well, let's walk you through what we have on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning. Tougher times as debt, inflation, unemployment weigh on economy. Risky future as strategic reserves run dry, says economist. More Nigerians give up, withdraw from labor market. Food inflation hits hard as insecurity triggers rural-urban migration. Unemployment rate, PDP decries FG's alleged deceit. So it's a lot for you, really. Starts on the front page, continues on page 2. And you have a picture of the DG of WTO being welcomed, so I say by women at the office of the Vice President. I mean, just celebrating, Mothering Sunday now, women, supporting women as it stands. So it's good to see, really. And right under that, you see eminent Nigerian leaders petition UN, others, over flawed 1999 constitution. Give 90-day ultimatum for talks. Clearly, the 1999 constitution still remains a huge bone of contention. Well, the National Assembly has that process in place where they are looking at the Constitution. But the question is, will this be enough? More details on page 2 of The Guardian. So some of the stories. FGOK's new 6 Naira 98 USSD rate, telcos shelf withdrawal. So we seem to have seen an end to that. But as you would expect, tongues have been wagging on that.
An end or a suspension? Details on the inside pages. Come on. Vanguard newspaper has Wakili. His 2 sons face murder, kidnapping, and conspiracy charges. That story is on page 10. Court remands him in prison custody. Youths raise herder settlement in Shaki over farmer's death. The details are there on the inside pages. I guess people that have been wondering, what's the police doing? What's the police doing about this Wakili that was arrested by the OPC? Well, the details are on page 10. Find that and more right there on the inside pages. The picture you see there is of the WTO DG, former Minister of Finance, visiting the CBN governor. It's interesting. The former Minister of Finance was boss to the CBN governor. And now, I don't know. Why am I even going there? As the Vanguard newspaper this morning, bank customers to pay $6.98 for USSD transactions, says CBN and the NCC. Was it this much before now?
Well, so before now, it was per session, I believe, but this now is per transaction. So it is believed that this should reduce, the back and forth, and then the cost which, customers have to pay for those transactions.
So now, when I make one transaction from end to end, it's this.
Hey, the Vanguard has more details for you. Okay. Don't do that to me.
Because I'm just anyway. Mr. and Mrs. this morning, I hope it's okay. The man says, a man wants everything in a woman: a wife, companion, very good cook, manager, mother, lover, comforter, entertainer, etc. The woman says, that's why only a stupid woman would marry a poor man.
Yeah. Ouch.
Ouch, right? The back page, of course, had Vanguard Sports, more on the right there on the back page.
We'll take a look at Daily Trust. Passengers stranded as Asman Air grounded. Northern routes worst hit. Senate backs NCAA, cites safety concern. You see, owner saying due process not followed. So still a lot. And, when you talk about air safety, it's usually very big. It's a big deal because we don't want to see air mishaps. So this one, we'll just wait it out and see how it plays out. More details on page 5. And you see the big picture there showing the president of Niger Republic, outgoing president Mahamadou Issoufou, being welcomed by President Buhari as he introduces him to governors. Quite a number of state governors really welcoming the Niger governor. You have governor of Sokoto, Yobe, Katsina, I think I saw the governor of Kano, Zamfara, and the rest. And right into that, you see Ayo Adebanjo emerges acting Afenifere leader. That one is on page 6. But this one might interest you. Right on top of the big caption, you see, law permits Adamu to remain IGP till 2024. Buhari, Malami. So, that controversy seems to have died down, and you'll hear this one coming up again. So the law is out there. What are your thoughts? It's on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper. And you see, Nigeria needs 50 million jobs in 10 years. It's coming from the WTO. It's regarding unemployment. There's
50 million jobs in 10 years. Will that address Mr. President's vision of pulling 100 million people out of poverty in 10 years?
Well, having 50 million jobs, of course, you know that there are also the indirect jobs, I believe, that will be created. And then there's that value chain. To put it that way. So maybe, but the question is, how will we do this? That's about 5 million jobs per year. There's sports stories. Ibrahimovic recalled to Sweden squad. Good to see that. But that's Daily Trust for you.
The Daily Independent this morning has, again, trade. Trade facilitation at risk over port's shoddy clearing system. That's what you have on the lead. Or as the lead of the Daily Independent newspaper this morning, and you may want to find out what that is all about on the front page. Right below the picture there, abductions, declare state of emergency in education. Article tells Buhari, and of course it's been a long time coming, but people keep talking about that. Ransom payment, fueling banditry and kidnapping, says northern leaders. I wonder why the northern leaders are saying this when every time we hear the kids have been released or the kidnapped people have been released, no ransom was paid. So how come this is happening? Well, the details you have on page 4 of the paper. Alleged dozens of Nigerians killed daily, but underreported. This is definitely something very, very troubling. Very troubling indeed. Well, you have that right there on the front page. Above the nameplate, among others there, what Nigeria must do to trade well at global market. Thanks Buhari and youths, as well as others, for support. And right beside that one, FG raises the alarm over a third wave of COVID-19, orders Emirates to suspend flight. Well, the story right there, I mean, this was also on the front page yesterday of the third wave. We are not even over the, are we over the first wave or the second wave?
We're not over the second wave per se, but you know, we always look ahead. We need to start telling people, I mean, this is part of sensitization. If you don't want us to see a third wave, then this is what we need to do. Well, the vaccines are here, just less than 10,000 people vaccinated already, so that is clearly not enough. We need the non-pharmaceutical precautions to also be ahead to. So yes, we need to look forward, really. Maybe even talk about a fourth wave and just make the message hit home.
Wait a minute. Can you slow down? Okay.
I mean, it's part of communication, but we don't pray for that, definitely. But we need to ensure we prepare for these things and don't just be caught unawares. Take a look at Nigerian News Direct. The lead story, asset declaration. Bank officials panic.
About time.
About time for them to panic or about time for the declaration? But see the writers. As EFCC sets June the 1st deadline, like I said, there's been a lot of debate on this. And this is quite huge.
I think there is a need for clarity on what this really means. When you say bank officials, which bank officials? At what level? Does it include the gate man? Does it include the people who give loans? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's quite important because clearly this is causing a lot of ripples. Let's know the details, really. That one is on page 22, and that Wakili story makes the front page of Nigerian News Direct. Wakili remanded in prison, charged with murder, kidnapping. But to this one, Nigeria deports 64, repatriates 1,132 immigrants in 2020. So 64 people were deported from Nigeria, apparently. That one's on page 21. So yeah, that's Nigerian News Direct for you.
Blueprint leads with strange disease kills 3 in Kano, 284 others hospitalized. Well, this made the news sometime last week of some strange ailments making the rounds, and well, this is where we are now. Index case drank water near cemetery, says state government. 3 arrested, 59 million flavored drink powder. Beg your pardon. 3 arrested, 59 million naira flavored drink powder and others confiscated. How the world? Greedy businessman behind our woes. That's according to residents, the story you'll find on page 6 of the paper this morning. Right under the nameplate, minimum wage bill, we're ready for nationwide protests. Labour tells Gbajabiamila. Well, as we have said a few times, it's not likely to just go away. It has to be addressed. Muslim media group backs workers. We won't hurt you, Gbajabiamila assures workers. That's what you have on the front page. And a number of others now. You want to quickly take on the leadership?
Oh yes, let's run you through. Leadership newspaper, lead story, experts blame insecurity, rising energy costs. That's regarding the 17.33% inflation. Urge governments to map out policies to tackle insecurity, supply chain challenges. FG services debt with 351 billion naira. So it seems we know this. I mean, we know where the problem lies. We need to now follow through with the solutions, right?
That's it. It's just as simple as that. Quick look at the Daily Times newspaper. That's it. Experts point way out is Nigeria's debts, inflation, unemployment soar. We saw this on the front page yesterday, 23 million according to official figures. The question then is that all? Well, the details are on the inside pages of the Daily Times newspaper.
Incidentally, that's all.
Oh, really?
Oh, dailies, that is.
Okay. So for the dailies. All right, the issues for the day are next after this break. Stay with us. On the front pages of the papers this morning, you see all kinds of things that are health-related, and some of them, NAFDAC is already taking head on. One, of course, is the Kano incidents, as well as COVID vaccine issues and communication that are still conflicting even from people who are supposed to know better. So she joins us this morning, the Director General of NAFDAC, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye. She joins us virtually from Abuja, along with Professor Philip Njamanze, who is Chairman, International Institute of Advanced Research and Training. He also joins us from Owerri virtually. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Prof. Adeyeye, let's begin with you. All the issues that are, thank you. What's happening in Kano is definitely something that one would want to wonder what exactly is happening. The strange disease came up, sometime late last week or into this week, and then we have reports that NAFDAC is already investigating and some findings have been made. Could you please expatiate on the findings so far?
Well, good morning. It's good to be here. This is a case of the Kano incident is a case of food poisoning with juice or flavored drinks that has a chemical called dansami. And we are looking at this. It is very, very serious because the food poisoning resulted in diarrhea, vomiting, and hospitalization. Our zonal director, pharmacist Gimba, is on top of this, and our pharmacovigilance officers are also inquiring or investigating what actually happened. So we're going to do a lot of testing in the lab, first to know what is the nature of this dansami chemical that probably led to the food poisoning.
Well, one wonders, what the origin of that would be in the first place, and the fact that according to what we have on the front page of one of the papers this morning, it's an investment running into millions that some people made, and so what's going to happen in that stead? Has the person been apprehended, and what's the story around that person?
Actually, right now, I don't have the details as of this. I got the information yesterday. But in terms of arrest, I've not gotten more information since yesterday. But our pharmacovigilance is already there. And once we determine the cause, and then we will know what next to do in terms of arresting the culprits or bringing them to the office to explain what is going on.
What are the chances of a recurrence, Prof?
The chances of recurrence are minimal. However, I'm going to qualify that because we don't even know whether this chemical is smuggled or even the flavored drink manufacturing is not approved by NAFDAC. That sometimes is what we find out. A doctor sent something to me a few months ago, or a few weeks ago actually, that a medicine is not working. And I said, okay, will you check whether there is NAFDAC number? And coincidentally, there was no NAFDAC number on 2 of the 3 medicines. So we have, every day we battle, what do you call it, top standard falsified medicines. We have porous walls. I said porous walls, porous borders, sorry. And we work every day. That is part of our core regulatory activities, running and looking after, smuggled goods, smuggled drugs that are substandard, sometimes counterfeited. So we just have to find out exactly whether this particular flavored drink was approved by NAFDAC. And if they approved by NAFDAC, what was causing the food poisoning? And it may be source of water, because sachet water is also associated with this. We have apprehended, we have shut down many companies, water companies, because of the unsanitary conditions that they have at their sites. Many times we approve a site and they give us, they show the day of inspection, they show the best. Sometimes they will go and rent equipment that we know we will pass, or equipment that will pass rather. And after we leave, they return the equipment, put people that are not as qualified back to the site. So the work of NAFDAC is a daily, round-the-clock, 24/7 vigilance. And what we also ask the citizens to do is to please work with us. So please work with us, call us, so that we can easily go and follow up on this. We have offices in 36+1 FCT states in the country, and our staff go around, as for their regular duties. The COVID-19, and I would want to also underscore that, the lockdown last year, we could not visit for about 5-6 months. That also added to the relaxation or the violation that we are observing. But we are getting on top of this as we speak.
I thought your staff are meant to be essential workers who can move around during lockdown. So clearly that must have set back your fight. And I think it's a pointer really to the fact that we need to give NAFDAC all the support we need because of the work you do in ensuring that the things we put in our system in terms of food, drug, are safe for use. Now we're talking vaccines. As you're battling the strange deaths in Kano and other areas, you're also in the thick of things when it comes to this vaccine rollout. And just recently, there was a report about NAFDAC destroying fake vaccines. So just before we get into, Nigeria's vaccine rollout, what is this talk about fake vaccines, first of all?
Okay, the destruction of drugs, fake vaccines that took place in the northeast, northeast, south, and southeast recently involved destruction of vaccines that we have seized in the past. One of them is actually a tetanus toxoid vaccine that we seized. It was stored at shop temperature, what I would call shop temperature. That is much higher. Sometimes it's 30 degrees centigrade or 40 degrees centigrade, depending on the temperature. And this tetanus toxoid vaccine is supposed to be in the refrigerator or in the freezer. So we seized this last year, actually 2019, COVID-19 pandemic didn't allow us to destroy last year. So that vaccine is part of what we destroyed over the last 2 weeks. We have not seized any COVID-19 vaccine. We are on the prowl because we know that people are injecting others with vaccines that NAFDAC did not approve, or vaccines that did not pass through Ministry of Health and Primary Health. And if a vaccine doesn't pass through NAFDAC for approval, and pass through Primary Health or Ministry of Health, we take that vaccine as unregistered, and the vaccines could be fake. So we are warning and imploring our citizens to not take vaccines that are not in the pipeline of primary health.
Okay. Well,
because we are supposed to follow up the vaccine. We are supposed to follow up the safety But without us being there, there's a danger. Thank you.
Okay, Prof, before I bring in Professor Njemanze, let me just quickly get clarity on this, because now we're at a point where about 20 countries have halted the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine, either the batch they got or the vaccine in general, as a result of reports of blood clots in the brain and all of that, which I'm sure NAFDAC is closely following. But time and again, I've heard authorities, including yourself, saying that the benefits far outweigh the risks, which is why we're not halting it in Nigeria. Just in layman terms, because, I mean, scientifically that means something, but what does that mean for the average Nigerian listening to you right now?
Okay, thank you so much. That is a very good point to discuss. We gave the AstraZeneca vaccine emergency use authorization. And this took place after exhaustive poring over the data that were contained in the dossier. This was after more matured regulatory agencies have approved. This was after WHO has approved for emergency use listing. So we did not do this nonchalantly at all, because the health of our people is prime to NAFDAC. However, when it comes to development of any product, there are phases in which the product goes through. Preclinical, clinical phases, that is made up of 1, 2, 3, phases 1, 2, 3, and then post-marketing or pharmacovigilance phase. These vaccines have been studied up to the phase 3 clinical trials. And then where we are right now is post-marketing pharmacovigilance, or what we call phase 4 study. When a product is being developed, which is part of this emergency use authorization, is still being watched, but still being studied, because we have not given it, no regulatory agency has given it full licensure. Because it is still under study, there will be more information coming out. And part of the information up to phase 3 clinical trial is safety and efficacy. If the side effects or adverse events are very, very few, in which case the risks outweigh, the risks are so minimal compared to the benefits. Most of the time, that product is approved. The side effects, they are minimal. Let me give you the example of this AstraZeneca. 17 million people have been injected with AstraZeneca in Europe, UK, and only 37 cases. And I don't want to use that only, carelessly, because it is 37 individuals. But when you look at 37 over 17 million, you are talking of 0.000002%. That is very, very small. If we have to destroy or stop the use of medicines with a risk of 0.000002%, then we will not have medicines at all. It is very important to take care of the side of the adverse events, but nonetheless, we have to look at this in a global perspective.
Well, you've underscored something very critical, and that is the fact that those figures are people. They are not just figures. But let's take this to Professor Njemanze. Well, this has been on for a while, and you've been hearing a lot of things yourself about how it is efficacious, how it's not efficacious. Even the deputy governor of Benue State was reported this morning to have said that he has issues. Even though he's chairman of the engagement of COVID-19 in his state, he's still himself referencing this case in Europe. How does it strike you?
Well, as the DG of NAFDAC has said, this was given an emergency.
Oh, I hope we'll get him back real soon, because, I mean, that's another angle that he's raised as well, the fact that it's an emergency approval given globally. And I guess it also underscores the issues some people have also had when they think, wait a minute, under normal circumstances, vaccines don't get ready so easily, so quickly.
I know that's been a major conversation, but when you listen to scientists saying, we've tried to build capacity before now. So this is as a result of capacity that has been built prior to this time. But, you know, something I'd like to take on Professor Adeye as we work on Professor Jimaze's connection. Prof, I'd just like to know, because, I mean, almost 20 countries or even more have currently halted the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine. And these details are there for people to consider and eventually make a decision on what they think about this vaccine, which is why we have you, at least, to put things in the right perspective. So when you say that, I mean, the benefits far outweigh the risks, but when you compare that with the fact that 20 countries have halted the use of that vaccine, so for them, they're saying better safe than sorry, rather than saying the benefits far outweigh the risks. So really, don't you think that reason is enough, especially when you see those countries, I mean, Denmark, Iceland, and the rest? Don't you think it's enough reason to step back and say, well, maybe we should just slow down on this?
It is logical to think that way, but when you come to think of the many hundreds, thousands that are dying, especially in Europe, of COVID disease, then you start wondering, is it better to die than to take a risk of 0.00002%? We have to put things in perspective. Some of those countries that have halted it, they are halting it very temporarily. I don't blame them, but at the same time, we have to look at the risk of getting COVID-19 disease versus the risk of getting a side effect or adverse event, which has not been tied. By the way, the adverse event has not been tied to the blood clot, has not been tied to the vaccine. They are still studying it because you have to have what is called causality. What is causing this? There is so much to learn about the disease, about the vaccines. Again, I don't want to belittle what happened about those who had blood clots. No. But have we considered whether some people already have COVID before taking the vaccines? Ideally, you are supposed to wait a month if you have COVID before taking the vaccines. But we, the healthcare givers, frontline workers, we need to engage the potential vaccinees more. Engage them. Okay, have you had COVID over the last month? Do you have blood pressure? Do you have diabetes? Questions that can trigger information that will say, oh, no, maybe you will come back in about a month or you wait for a while. And also, we have to make sure that the vaccinee stays around for a short while after the vaccination.
Okay. Well,
for myself, yes, sir.
I just wanted to take Professor Jimaze. All of these things that you're saying, they are quite valid and quite good. Very many questions that one would want to ask, but we will come to them in steps. Professor Jimaze, please go ahead.
Yes, I think as I underscored earlier, that this was just an emergency authorization. So we study what happens using a very important principle called precautionary measures. Precautionary means that if anything anywhere occurs, you will stop the use of that medicine because it's an experimental drug. We are still in the phase 4 of this. We do not know. The manufacturers don't know what will happen. The regulators don't know the long-term effects because there is still no long-term effect. This was just produced. So that precautionary measure mandates that should anything occur in Ireland, Iceland, Norway, Spain, elsewhere, we must here in Nigeria. We will not wait until it happens at Apapa or Oshodi. No, we must here in Nigeria immediately institute a suspension. And that then allows the regulators to clearly and follow up the cases. That's what should be done with the AstraZeneca vaccine. It is an experimental vaccine. And we cannot just start giving this. Only, when you give a vaccine, the adverse effects can come even as late as 23 days later. So there are short-term effects, which the DG has outlined. You have to wait for 15 to 30 minutes or 1 hour. These are the immediate effects. But there are some effects that are delayed responses. So this is what should be done immediately. We should suspend the use of that vaccine. We are not in a pandemic in the real sense of it, as far as Nigeria is concerned. You are talking about 168 cases, 170 cases, let us say even 200,000 cases. This is not something that will mandate us exposing people who overall will face a low risk if you give them the vaccine. When you talk about, oh no, it's 0.001%, for that person, that reaction has occurred, it is 100%.
Well, Prof, how do you factor in
lost their life or suffer the disability? That is 100%.
So how do you also factor in talks about, the blood clots not being related to the vaccines just yet, that there is no link or proof of any link between the blood clots and the vaccines? And, some scientists have also said, well, the number of blood clot cases that have been seen is not really anything to worry about, because they believe that it's usual, what you see in about 10,000 or 100,000. So how do you factor in that side of the argument as well?
Well, you see, when you look at that, and look at the weekly report in the UK given by the government in Pfizer vaccine right now, you will see 212 deaths. And that's government report. This is not the press report. 212 deaths.
Just a moment.
I'm just saying.
No, we lost the first part of your response. So if you could just take that again because of the network. Thank you.
Yes. Well, what I was saying, that the first part, the first thing you have to look at when you look at the responses, you look at the massive number that is being reported even from other vaccines. For example, the UK report, the government report on the vaccine adverse. If you look at that number, you will see 212. Will 212 of these people die from the disease? So
We'll definitely come back to this conversation. Clearly, the network is not quite friendly at this moment, but when we return from this break, we'll continue the conversation. Just stay with us. Thank you so much for staying with us. Professor Njemazi, perhaps a clarity is necessary here. Just what exactly are you talking about happened in the UK? Are you saying that some people who took vaccines in the UK have died as a result of it?
Yeah, there is an adverse effect reporting system in the UK, and these numbers are put out by the government. So and let's say the person dies, it does not mean the vaccine killed the person, but what it means is that it's brought under the notice of the authorities and they start the investigational processes. So that's how they report all this. Even different reactions, diarrhea, temperature, all that is reported, and they put out the numbers. But in that category of and this is a weekly report, and you can see in that category you have 212 of those suspected. It might happen that it might not be related. Not all of them are related in any way to the vaccine. Some might be. The same thing when Norway started, 39 deaths. So that one was put under investigation by the Norwegian authorities. So the issue is until it occurs in Nigeria. They're the same human beings in Ireland and in Iceland as in Nigeria. So you must take a precautionary approach. That's why the NAFDAC director correctly qualified it as emergency approval. And emergency there is the key word. It underscores that we are actually at the stage of pharmacovigilance. If anything occurs, you stop it. They didn't tell the NAFDAC didn't tell the factory that was producing food where the occurred. Oh, wait a minute! Continue putting out the product until we finish our investigation. No, they didn't do that. They stopped them immediately and then started the investigation. That's what should be done. Once this occurs, it's an experimental vaccine. The countries in Europe did the correct thing. They will suspend.
All right. Well, Professor Njemaze, clearly we need to work on that connection. But let's go back to Professor Adeyeye while we work on that one. Madam, how do you react to some of the things that you've heard Professor Njemaze talk about?
The investor comments again. That's the correct thing.
Professor Njemaze, please hold on. Just let's go back to Professor Adeyeye.
Yes, I could see the perspective of Professor Njemaze. However, this is not the first drug that will be under emergency use authorization. And this is not the first vaccine that is being used for COVID-19. As a regulatory authority, NAFDAC being a regulatory authority, we are part of the International Coalition of Medicine Regulatory Authorities. NAFDAC is the only African country that is being represented there. And every day, information is shared about side effects of or adverse events of serious nature. So it is transparent. For example, anaphylactic reaction. Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna have reported anaphylactic reactions. Bell palsy, temporary weakness of the muscles of the eye, partial temporary paralysis of the eye muscles. Those have been reported. Should we then have stopped those two vaccines from being used? It is knowing that these are serious, but the benefits outweigh the risks. Do you want hundreds of people to die? Or if there is a very, very minimal chance that somebody will have serious adverse event, you have to. It is logical. People are dying of COVID-19. The vaccine should not be stopped unless it is of a massive, statistically massive occurrence. When I was wanted to take mine, I asked the doctor, do you have drug for anaphylactic reaction? Because I have severe reactions to many things. And the doctor said yes. At the point of injection, I said, did you bring it? I asked the doctor, did you bring it? Because if I were given the vaccine and I faint, then I want them to give me a jab immediately. So will I now say it is my own fainting or whatever is the one that is what caused, it is the vaccine that caused it? No.
Madam, perhaps a challenge. Yeah. Perhaps the
Yes.
challenge, this information, for instance, that you have put out, perhaps that is the challenge because, you know, I think we've had this conversation before. Many people don't know what they're allergic to. And if there are things that they're allergic to and that the injection could cause a spike or cause a reaction as a result of it, then the challenge is there. I mean, you know, for instance, that you are allergic to a number of things and you had enough information to be able to take that precaution. But we can't say that for all 200 million Nigerians or the 4 million people that are going to, not for all the 4 million people that are going to take the injections.
You are absolutely right. And we are now emphasizing that we should engage the potential vaccinee a little bit longer. Ask about their history. You don't need to take the vaccine if you don't feel good about yourself or you are. For example, how do we know there is no drug-drug interaction? We don't know. And it is at phase 4, even when not for even vaccine, it is at phase 4 when you are now giving it to millions that you may start finding out drug-drug interaction.
You know, part of the concerns that a number of people have had is what you have just raised. And let's just hope that indeed, just as you have said, people who are the vaccinators themselves will have enough enough patience to be able to engage the vaccinees, many of which may be ignorant of their own health history, may not even have some of this information. Now, let me reference something that the Commissioner for Health in Lagos said the other time when he talked about 2 categories of reactions: events after vaccination and events of special interest. Could you please clear the air on that? And do we have data from the field of people who have already taken the vaccines? Which one of these 2 categories have we had reports on so far?
Thank you so much. NAFDAC is mandated to have a pharmacovigilance study of many products coming into the market. And we started preparing for this last October or November when we launched Med Safety app. We launched the Med Safety app to collect data. Adverse events following immunizations are like, pain in the arm after the shot, swelling or fever or chills. Those are normal reactions following immunization. However, anaphylactic reaction, like I mentioned, is not a normal reaction following immunization. It is adverse event of serious interest. Bell palsy, temporary paralysis of the face, is adverse event of serious nature or special interest. So we categorize this based on the severity. And at the National Hospital, for the first week, about 550-something healthcare workers were vaccinated. We got a report of about 5 or 6 adverse events following immunization, from a little bit of fever to chills to pain at the site of injection to tummy rumbling, not really going much after that. But we have not recorded adverse event of serious nature or special interest.
Okay, let's take this back to...
We may, yeah.
Okay, let's take this back to Professor Jemanze now. We have him on phone. So earlier on, you said that you don't think, Nigeria is in a pandemic situation, and you gave figures to corroborate that. The question now would be, time and again you have spoken against, or at least shared your reservations against vaccines. You've spoken about Pfizer, now AstraZeneca. The question is, what would you rather we do instead of this vaccination rollout? What is the other option?
Yeah, actually, the thing is to define what is the objective. In the belt, I said 30 to 50 degrees north, just across the globe, where this pandemic is raging, where there is a very high mortality, we have very, very low mortality, also in the 0.000% of our population. The driving issue is that they want to get quickly to herd immunity using the vaccine. That's their objective. So and that's why they are rolling out the vaccine, so it can drive them to herd immunity. That's the objective. What is the objective in Nigeria? That's the point. And when this objective is not clearly defined, are you trying to give the vaccine so the Nigerians will get to herd immunity? What's the objective of doing that? And you have to have a clear-cut answer.
Time and again, pardon me, let me just drop this in. Time and again, I mean, the MPHCDA and other officials at the PTF have said that we're trying to achieve herd immunity, which you have referenced. So isn't that a clear enough objective?
No, wait a minute. I mean, the herd immunity comes when you have a massive spread, and then you are now using the vaccine to terminate the transmission. But when you are quoting numbers of 168, 170, 200,000, over 200 million, then that's not a massive spread. So what are you really trying to achieve with a mass vaccination? It has never been done in the history of humanity to pick the whole population and start vaccinating them against any. You use vaccines to confine the spread of an infection.
Isn't that what inoculation and vaccination is about, trying to prevent a disease? I mean, babies get vaccinations not because they have it already. And are you saying we should wait till a substantial percentage of our population gets COVID-19 before we start vaccination? Which one is it?
But you already have, we already observe it, that many people already have gotten COVID, and they have gotten it in a mild form, and they have achieved immunity. The most potent thing, okay, let's say you theoretically want to do that, and then the variant that comes up, maybe the Nigerian variant or new South African variant that comes up, the vaccine is not sensitive to you. So you start another vaccination exercise? It makes no medical sense, especially in our situation. Because you're not going to start this variant that comes. These things are made specifically for the most prevalent circulating variant. So if you're going to start vaccination exercise all the time to deal with this, that means we are going to have COVID-19, COVID-21, COVID-23, and this is going to go. When will this end? This is not the correct approach. We have dealt with Ebola in this country. We have dealt with Lassa fever in this country. Never was this approach ever taken. So the Europeans and the Americans are dealing with this for the very first time. And they are learning, and they are not learning very well. We should not just copy and paste what the Europeans and the Americans are doing because we want to look good internationally.
Okay, Prof, I think we should break this down further, so we can understand. So you're saying that, or are you saying that we should have a substantial amount of people infected with COVID-19 before we begin to look into vaccination?
Exactly. But the truth of the matter is that there are other things. In fact, the vaccine will not even help you to stop that spread. And that is the experience we are having.
So you reference other diseases, for example. People get yellow fever shots. Have we had substantial amount of Nigerians get yellow fever before the vaccination?
Well, wait a minute. We are not saying you should do targeted. Targeted vaccination in the population at high risk. That's what you do. You see the medical personnel that are attending at the frontier, you do vaccination for them. You see, most of the Nigerians who get yellow fever vaccine, they get it most times when they are traveling. Okay? So they have to have a traveling passport. So they have to have their yellow fever card. So you don't just start vaccinating everybody. What can you do for all the diseases? You start vaccinating everybody for it?
Extension, Prof.
These are mental concepts that don't work.
But by extension, let me see if I could stretch this. You probably say that babies don't also need to get vaccination.
No, we don't need it right now for a mass vaccination. What we might need it for is to vaccinate the group at risk so we can confine the infection from spread. So, and there should be monitoring. There should be what the national director said. There should be disease monitoring exercise. So we know where the outbreaks are coming from. We know which groups are at risk. You vaccinate those things to break the transmission. That's the principle. The principle of is unknown to medicine that you have to vaccinate everybody. I mean, where does that come from? We didn't read that in any textbook.
When you say, Prof, that it's unknown to medicine, are you saying that the entire global health community, it's also strange to them? They're just coming up with some hoopla?
You heard me say that they face, if you look at the map of the world, you will see latitude 30 to 50 degrees north. This is an area with low humidity. Sometimes their humidity falls to 20%. And they have low temperature too. And in this humidity belt, low belt, you have a spread because once the humidity is low and the temperature is low, you have a spread. That's the same thing that happens with the seasonal flu. So what now happens is in our own belt, we have high humidity and high temperature. So the possibility of spread is low. And those people who get in contact with this disease are usually those predisposed to that from one because they are traveling, or those who are in contact with healing, in the hospitals and other places where they come in contact. So you select those groups at risk. You don't go vaccinating everybody as rightly as the DG.
So in the present circumstance then, what would you suggest that the nation should do? Clearly, with all the appeal that government has been making, people aren't abiding by the non-pharmaceutical initiatives. So what do you suggest?
Yeah, my suggestion is very simple. We face all the viruses that come, both seasonal and otherwise. We face them with therapeutics. That's what we should do when some people are sick. At the end, if they get the disease, they come out alive with herd immunity, natural immunity. Now, for those at risk, those medical personnel at risk, and those people in traveling and are in contact with those that's why you do the contact tracing issues, you vaccinate those areas to break the transmission. That's what is done. We are not going to have all the measures they are taking don't even make any sense. You lock down the whole economy. When you lock down in Nigeria, you are locking down in Ajegule, you have 10 people living in a room. When you lock down, you crowd people in one place. If they are not locked down, they walk in the peripherals where they are selling in outer space.
All right, Professor Njemanze, let's have the reaction of the NAFDAC DG. Professor Adeyeye, how do you respond to some of these issues?
Okay, yes, we are seeing variants of this COVID virus developing. We don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. COVID-19 may become a seasonal flu-like disease. And when you have such a disease, you've got to get your vaccination. That cannot be overemphasized because of the lethality of the disease, the seriousness of it. Anybody that has been to the isolation ward with a ventilator in the nursery or whatever, or mouth of people, will know that the best precautionary step is to take the vaccine. The approach that Professor Njemanze is taking, I would say it is a logical but not medically based approach, because we develop drugs every day, we regulate drugs every day, we see side effects from clinical or preclinical to clinical. And it is when beyond proof, the benefits outweigh the risks, that we approve. And let me just share something. What we are doing as International Coalition of Medicine Regulatory Authorities is to collate all what are being observed, whether it is adverse event following immunization or serious one of special interest, so that we will be able to educatively decide whether any of these vaccines may not be approved. Meaning licensed, because right now we are just giving emergency use authorization. And bear in mind, AstraZeneca was approved by matured agencies. It was given emergency use listing by WHO. But while doing all this, while this assessment was going on, nobody pretended that there may not be
another challenge.
Events of special interest.
Yes, perhaps another challenge there would be because clearly people are on different sides of the divide as far as this vaccination is concerned. So we have an issue then clearly of communicating the safety and efficacy of the COVID-19 vaccine to many, many more people in a way that they will understand. Taking that challenge on, Prof, would be the next task. So how do we go about it?
Thank you so much. We aired on another station yesterday about Med Safety app. Anybody can download it free on Google, if it's Android, or on App Store for iPhone. People can self-report. If they are educated enough, they have a smartphone, they can self-report. At the vaccination centers, our epidemiologists from primary health, our pharmacovigilance staff from NAFDAC are there at the vaccination center to give out, even for those who don't have iPhone. And the downloading is free, by the way, for the Med Safety app. Millions can download it. But if they cannot afford it, or they don't know how to use the app electronically, we give the yellow form so that they can fill in what their side effects are, and God forbid, adverse events of special interest. But we need the data. Without the data, we regulators will be in a very difficult situation to approve the vaccines or to fully approve the vaccines.
Okay, well,
so
let's
it's extremely important. Yes.
All right, pardon me, just to get Professor Njemanze to also put in his final thoughts as we wind down. So, Prof, I mean, we've had quite an interesting conversation around this, but clearly we have to move forward. I know you've spoken about what we should do moving forward, but what are your final thoughts, your closing thoughts?
Well, I applaud NAFDAC for what they are doing, the good work they are doing. However, if you tell a farmer in Zunguru to download an app from NAFDAC, it will not be useful for the farmer. So we have a different situation, and we cannot take the first world approach for the problem we face. Our still old approaches are effective, even for this disease. Let me give you just a simple example.
We have completely run out of time for that example, but we have to thank you very much for the thoughts that you have expressed this morning. Professor Philip Njemanze is Chairman, International Institutes of Advanced Research and Training, as well as Professor Mojisola Adeye, who is Director General of NAFDAC. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us this morning and throwing light.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
We're back in a moment. Do stay with us.
Oh dear, it was quite a session at the House of Representatives, as you can see there. And that's some backstory to our next conversation this morning. And joining us to sort of give more light on that is Honorable Mark Wheeler, whom you saw in that video. He's a member of the House of Representatives from Benue State. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program. So this video has circulated quite well. Thank you. It's good to have you. And as you'd expect, lots of reactions. But regarding the backstory, because, I mean, looking at a statement from the Office of the Deputy Speaker, it says that, you know, the coverage and reportage of the incident have mostly been doctored, slanted, and bent to give political and ethnic coloration to an event that was otherwise strictly based on rules of parliamentary procedure. So that's the perspective of the Speaker. If you could, or Deputy Speaker, so please give us the context, really. What exactly happened?
Okay, thank you very much, and good morning once again. You can see that the video has been played completely. So I do not have anything personal against the Deputy Speaker, but I do not see how his response in that press statement is tenable. You can see very clearly no aspect of the video was doctored. His words were taken verbatim. So it is obvious from that exchange that he appeared to have some premeditated bias or angst against the presentation of that petition. And obviously you can see from the video that I was flustered because, unfortunately for me, I did not even have our rule book with me at the time, because our rule book, which I hope you are privy to, very clearly indicates that a petition stands submitted. What that means, and I can read that portion of the rule book to you if we have the time, what that means is once a petition is brought on the floor, it is immediately submitted for forwarding to the Committee on Public Petitions. The presiding officer, contrary to what the Deputy Speaker said, that he has to be convinced, there's no provision like that in our law for him to be convinced about a petition, because that is a very significant aspect of our representation as members of the House of Representatives, to be able to provide that avenue for members of our constituents and other Nigerians to voice their displeasure or concerns about any issue. So it's important for me to begin to address the Speaker's response. I do not think he looked at that response before it was published, because there are certain aspects of it that I am completely bewildered about, like this aspect about saying it was slanted and doctored. You can see the video, it was very clear, nothing about it was doctored. So it is important that we begin to highlight the issues of law. Our standing orders make it very clear how petitions should be handled. Okay. They are submitted. The presiding officer doesn't argue about it. He receives it and forwards it to the House Committee on Public Petitions. Then when it has to do with the issue of diaspora, let me address a few issues very quickly. Even when it has to do with dual citizenship, our Constitution recognizes and permits dual citizenship. It only affects you when you want to seek elective office. So even if it is from dual citizenship bearing citizens of our country abroad, there's nothing in our laws that prevents them from expressing themselves about issues concerning their countrymen. And then obviously also when he talked about the issue of CAC, I referred him to Section 40, which says we have a freedom of association as a fundamental human rights, whether or not you are registered. But to even put that in the right perspective, this association, if that was even a concern to him, is also registered with the CAC under the umbrella body Mzo TIV. So these are things I just wanted to put in the right context before we go on to the fact that in his, just very briefly, in his comments, you will see he talked about he's not convinced that somebody in America should be presenting an issue in Nigeria about issues happening in Nigeria. That is a clear statement. That is an affront to our compatriots in the diaspora. These are his words, not mine.
Just to be clear, do Nigerians in diaspora have a right to petition the House of Representatives or not?
Absolutely, they do. Absolutely. It is their country. It is their parliament. They have absolutely unalienable rights to present a petition on the floor of either chamber of the National Assembly.
So if this petition was not received, it would imply that that right was trampled upon.
Yes, which is why I'll be resubmitting the petition again next week when I come back to the country, because I believe my privilege has been breached, the privilege of my people, the TIV Union, my constituents, and the privilege of Nigerians in diaspora has been breached by that occurrence. So I will be representing that petition again when I return to Nigeria next week.
You know, we'll talk about the response of Nigerians in diaspora and some of the legalities to this. But regarding the petition, what is the content really?
Okay, now the petition specifically has to do with the issue of, in this particular instance, the TIV people who have been, the TIV people not just in Benue, but displaced TIV people across Benue, Nasarawa, and Taraba states who have been displaced from their ancestral lands by incessant herdsmen attacks and other unrests within the communities in those areas. That's specifically what the issue was. And it is hinged on the fact that in May 2018, the vice president very clearly made a pronouncement about the availability of 10 billion naira for the resettlement of IDPs in Benue and other parts of the country. Until date, not one single kobo of that money has been made available. Our people are languishing in IDP camps, unable to feed themselves. The children are not going to school for several years now. They're living in very squalid and inhuman conditions. And the federal government appears to be playing the ostrich with regards to this issue. So that is fundamentally what this petition was about against the federal government.
Well, we'll come to that, particular case, but just for a moment, let me take you back to the rule book that you quoted earlier. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a section of your rule book in the House of Representatives, this ninth house, that says, under petition, Rule 4 says, all petitions shall be ordered without question, being put to be laid upon the table. Such petitions shall stand referred to the Committee on Public Petitions. But I heard the Deputy Speaker chairing that meeting say that if you look at it properly, he would say, with the permission of the Speaker. Is there any particular rule that makes that, that adds that phrase to it or clause to it?
Well, you have the rules right in front of you, and you have just read exactly, precisely what the rule book says. So there's absolutely no provision in that rule that says the presiding officer needs to be, in the way he put it, satisfied about his presentation. It just says it stands laid. That means when you lay it, there's no debate, there's no consideration. It is just referred to the Committee on Public Petitions without any provision for the presiding officer to decide whether or not he is satisfied. The House on Public Petitions will look at the petition and see if it meets the criteria very lucidly and very eloquently articulated in that section of the law. And that petition, which I believe I have provided you a copy of, met every aspect of the requirement of the petition.
Well, one other thing that my colleague Kaude raised earlier is about the substance of the issue at hand, which is the petition from the thieves in America. One wonders why it has taken so long. From information available from that very petition itself, the association dated back to 2013. Even before this government came into office in 2015. So one wonders what have the successive state governments done to take on this issue so it doesn't get to 2021. That's quite some time, wouldn't you say?
Yes, the specific aspect that dated back to 2013 has to do with issues in neighboring states around Benue, where Tiv people also are domiciled in Taraba, in Nasarawa. These are issues of citizenship. So these are issues that the governments have been engaging with their colleagues, fellow governors, to resolve. Very recently, the current governor, Governor Simon Otom, held a meeting with the Taraba state governor in Abuja, where I was in attendance, to try to resolve the issues with what is seemingly the attempt by those in Taraba who consider themselves to be more indigenous than the Tiv people who have been there for centuries. So those are the specific issues. The issues that have to do with herdsmen, you and I know, came to a head when this administration was in government. So it is good to put the issues in the right context. So engagements have been ongoing. The governors of concerned states have been interfacing. The people have been going back and forth over their acceptability by those who think they're more indigenous in those locations.
So now, if from your reference of what the vice president has said, nothing has happened, who should be the one to execute or put teeth to the words of the vice president or the pronouncement of the vice president that you referenced earlier?
Well, I think it will be two-pronged. First of all, the president himself, who I believe should be intimated from the fallout of this whole incident about the need to immediately uphold the words of his vice president, who was speaking on behalf of his administration. So I'm using this medium to call on the president himself to immediately look at the implementation and the release of these funds as was promised. We don't want to assume that it was just playing lip service to the situation and they didn't really consider those of us in this predicament as being important enough to honor their statement. And secondly, that is why the petition was referred to the House of Representatives, a part of the legislature that oversees the executive. Of course, we have been having incidents of the executive not honoring our resolutions, but it will be important for us as the fulcrum of a democracy, without which obviously there'll be no democracy, to be seen to have done our part, to have made a definitive statement in this regard, and then let the onus now be on the executive whether or not they honor our resolution as a legislature. So that's why I'm saying, so it also, is part of our responsibility to take a stand on it, send a resolution and a decision of the committee to the executive for implementation. That's why I said it's a two-pronged approach. The president doesn't need to be cajoled. It's a statement already made by his deputy, by his vice. And of course, we in the legislature should also do our part and rise to the occasion. This is an issue that very soon will be the cry of other parts of this nation. You can see what's happening with the level of influx of these herdsmen in other parts of the country. When we were shouting, when the governor of Benue State Otom was shouting about this several years ago, other parts of Nigeria, with all due respect, appeared to be playing the ostrich. Now it has come home to roost. Right. So let us not all wait till the IDP condition also becomes unbearable in other parts of the country before we start to address the issue.
Honorable, I'm quite worried that this is an indication of something even much deeper. Because looking at the content of the petition that refers to Nigerians who, as a result of the attack on their homesteads and farmlands by herdsmen, have been rendered homeless in the past few years and, as you said, are stranded in refugee camps. And this is a reflection of what we have seen as the farmer-herder clashes over time, which has been a very touchy subject, security-wise, politically speaking. And now we're seeing this play out in some sense at the House of Representatives. Are you worried that this might split the House across ethnic lines?
Yes, of course. It's a source of concern because you will know that the conspiracy theorists have already begun to draw conclusions to the fact that the Deputy Speaker, with no desire to even hear the essence of the petition, perhaps maybe because he's of Fulani extraction, was only upset about the mention of thief people complaining about issues. Now, note very clearly, I'm not saying, and I'm not alluding to that fact, I'm just saying that is the conspiracy theory making the rounds. I'm just referring to it. And so you see, as members of the National Assembly at that level of leadership, we should be the one to espouse the spirit of unity and to be detribalized in the way we approach issues. So that's why I personally feel aggrieved at the actions of my colleague, the Deputy Speaker. He's not my boss. He's only a first amongst equals. We just elected them to lead us. The manner in which he attempted to shut me down when I was trying to do my statutory responsibility of representing my people has upset me. I am asking on behalf of my people an apology, an unequivocal apology from the Deputy Speaker to me as his colleague, to the TIB nation, and to Nigerians in diaspora who he seemed to have an issue against, because it is clear in his statements. It's not doctored, it's not slanted. The video is very articulate and very clear when he talks about how can you know what is happening in Nigeria because you're in America. That, I think, is out of line and totally does not show the spirit of oneness that we promote. We should even be giving our compatriots abroad an opportunity to vote. This is what happens in other climes. So you can understand the sentiments that this issue has raised. And fundamentally, let's not lose sight of the issues here, like you so very correctly mentioned. The plight of our people who are unable to go back to their lands, who are unable to fend for themselves, and no intervention has been coming from the federal government in any manner. And it's a concern to us when NEMA, on the contrary, in Borno State, I don't know whether they consider Boko Haram to be of more importance, when the herdsmen have been rated amongst the top 4 terrorist groups globally. But you will see that NEMA intervenes daily and monthly to the same IDPs that are citizens of this country in Borno State, but other parts of the country, this intervention is not being done. We cannot begin to deny nepotistic inclinations and influences if these things are happening blatantly before our eyes. And these are things that we will not condone and we do not appreciate.
Well,
it should
Honorable,
immediately...
well, if you say you expect an apology, it will seem that the Deputy Speaker will need to release another statement aside this one, which was released just right after the event. But, I mean, looking at the dailies, you would hear reports about Nigerians in diaspora saying that they might withhold remittances as a result of this. Is that option really on the table?
Well, I would not hold brief for them, but of course they are outraged by statements of somebody at that level in our legislature, in their legislature. So obviously it is something that is within their powers to do if they come together as a group. We're appealing to them to not do so for the sake of our country. You can see their contribution to the GDP of this nation. second only, and in some instances even more than the contribution of oil to our GDP. So obviously it is something that's within their right and their powers to do, but I think it will be important for us all to appeal to them, and they are also waiting for that apology. So it also behoves on my colleague to do the needful. In his statement, it was unnecessarily defensive, and it further only complicated issues. That statement, like I said, he probably didn't read it because it is not tenable. And in that statement, why I'm also unhappy, he tried to allude to the fact that he was trying to correct me. Correct me about what? With all due respect and with every sense of humility. Some of us are Ivy League educated. I know the provisions of the law with regards to the presentation of petitions, and nothing was done out of line. Unfortunately, it was the Deputy Speaker who erred in his own inability to have remembered the provisions of our standing orders, and especially the constitutional provisions that protect the fundamental human rights of Nigerians in Nigeria and in diaspora.
Right. Just to say, we did reach out to the Deputy Speaker for some representation, and, well, we didn't have it. Hopefully, we'll get that. But we'd like to thank you so much, Honorable Mark Miller, for shedding more light on this, and we wish you the very best in the days ahead.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is all mine.
All right. Your contributions to this program is next. Just before we say our goodbyes, we begin with this one from Professor Inakena, who says, it's a travesty for the acting speaker to disprove and disperse views of people like us in diaspora, irrespective of the color of our passports. Insofar as we are Nigerians, it's obfuscating and pernicious to turn down a legitimate observation by Nigerians in diaspora.
Oh, you had to get Prof. Those terms.
Yes, he is a prof.
Oh dear. Take a look at Henry's tweet. I think that's next, saying that let science lead regarding the AstraZeneca vaccine and blood clots. The Caucasians, that's Europeans and white Americans, are known to have 3 to 8% prevalence of factor V-laden mutations, which disposes them to blood clots than other populations. Blood clots have known prophylactic and treatment parameters. He ends by saying, calm down, please.
And this next one is also about the same vaccine. Says a lot of Nigerians purge after eating beans, and after taking malaria medication, they feel feverish. Can we please ban them also because of the side effects?
You know, I had a good laugh reading that one. Believe me, some people are not banning beans anytime soon. But see this one, Atia Deleke says the beauty of science is the presence of different schools of thought. A very engaging interaction between Professor Adeye and Professor Njemanze. My thoughts, he says, I will rather risk 0.00002 chance of getting adverse effects of serious concern than zero protection.
So would I guess. Oluwale says in this next one, if countries in Europe with more deaths and advanced technology should be more concerned, That should be more concerned can halt the vaccines, what should be our reason for not temporarily halting? They have 1 million deaths for a single Nigerian death for COVID-19.
Let's take this final one. Nigerians, from Alexandra, by the way. Nigerians may not have the numbers others do, but they travel and mingle with persons in countries that have suffered from this disease and can spread to those populations.
Definitely genuine concerns. Well, you can, of course, express yours as well on our Twitter thread as the day goes on. But thank you so much for watching today and have a wonderful day. I'm Ayo Makinde.
I'm Kaido Kikilu. We appreciate your time. To have a great day.